Hi, James with the 1HourSmartHome.com, and today we're going to compare Leviton versus Lutron Caseta smart light switches. So these are two very popular smart light switches, and what they allow you to do is control your lighting from your phone or with compatible voice assistants like Alexa or Google Home. And we're going to go through today and kind of compare both of these, how they work, how they get installed, and which one might be right for your home, and just my personal opinion on these based on the experience I've had having them in my home as well as installing these. So right here, this is the Leviton smart light switch, and right here, this is the Lutron Caseta smart light switch. So we'll get started off on how these work, and then we'll kind of progress to installation, and then what my opinion is on this. So the Leviton smart light switches, they actually come in both Wi-Fi and Z-Wave configurations. I prefer the Wi-Fi light switch configuration, and what that means is that this will work with your standard Wi-Fi home hub network. So if you've got a Wi-Fi router, this thing is going to work with it. You don't need any kind of smart home hub. It just connects right to a standard Wi-Fi network. And to turn this on or off, you just click up here at the top, that's going to turn it on, and click down here at the bottom, that's going to turn it off. And then it has a little dimming adjustment tab here on the side, a toggle where you can either hit it up or down, and it's going to adjust the dimming level, or you can just press and hold, and that's going to adjust the dimming level. And now you can't see it on this one because it's not wired up, but it does have a dimming indicator over here on this side, which is a series of LEDs, which tells you how bright this is, if it's 100% brightness or 50% and whatever percentage brightness this is. So this works on Wi-Fi, no hub required. It is a dimmer switch. It is a smart switch, meaning that you can control it from your phone with the app, whether you're in your house or you're away. You can also control this with Google Home, Alexa, and HomeKit, so Apple HomeKit or Siri. So that'll connect to your iPhone through HomeKit, and you're going to be able to control it with Siri commands like Siri, turn off the bedroom lights. What we've got here, this is the Lutron Caseta light switch. And how this works is it's got a on button at the top, an off button at the bottom, and then you have up here, you're going to be able to turn it up or turn the brightness or dimming level and adjust that so it's less dim or brighter, I guess. And there's another little dimmer switch down here, and you can adjust the dimming level down lower and decrease the brightness. All right, and this will also work with Alexa, Google Home, and Siri voice assistants or HomeKit. So pretty much in terms of functionality, they're going to both work with the same voice assistants, and they both have dimming functionality. Now, this does not connect to your standard Wi-Fi network. The Lutron Caseta light switches actually have a home hub. You can see down here, and that hub has to connect to your Wi-Fi router via Ethernet port, and you also plug it in and power it. So that converts the Lutron Caseta signals from whatever's coming from your router. They get converted on that home hub to this proprietary network that Lutron Caseta uses. So these can be controlled from your phone, and they can be controlled remotely or with voice assistants, but the home hub that is included with the Lutron Caseta switches converts it to a different frequency that these smart switches use. So they do require a hub. Now that hub does have a couple of things that you should know about it. The home hub has a limitation of, I think, 75 devices. You can look at the exact specification in the link below, but you can only have 75 Lutron Caseta devices connected to one hub. After that, you're going to need more hubs. The other thing about that Lutron Caseta hub is that it does have a range limitation. It's somewhere in the 60 to 90 feet range is what they say on the specifications. I found it to be much higher, probably about 120 feet, but they really want to be conservative when they are talking about that, so they don't get calls from people saying, hey, the range is too short. What I found is if you live in a standard construction wood framed home with wood floors or standard flooring, you're going to get probably closer to 100, 120 foot range from the home hub with the Lutron Caseta devices. Now, since these work on Wi-Fi, there is a range limitation, but I don't think of it as a limitation anymore, because if you have a Wi-Fi system like Eero or Google Home that's a mesh network, you can just add additional Wi-Fi range extenders and basically unlimited extension of that Wi-Fi network. I have an Eero system, and I can get my Eero Wi-Fi network down the block, probably 120 feet away. So with this, I don't consider that a range limitation. With this, it does have to be in proximity to that hub, and the hubs don't work as a mesh network. So it's not like you could have one further away and it's going to connect to the same thing. It's just a little bit different how that works. However, these do have range extenders. If you get a Lutron Caseta smart plug, that will actually extend the range of the network. So you can just plug those in, and those smart plugs will allow you to control lights and devices that you have plugged into them. So you'd probably get those anyways, but those smart plugs do act as a range extender for the hub. So just something to know about that with these. These Lutron Caseta ones do require a hub. There is somewhat of a range limitation, although I've never reached it. I would guess that you'd probably run into that range limitation if you had a house over 5,000 or 6,000 square feet. You might need to start thinking about the Lutron Caseta range extenders, or if you had a house that was a lot of concrete and brick in the interior walls, or you had flooring that was concrete or something of that nature, because it's going to block the signal on this. So let's talk about installation of these two smart light switches. I'm going to go to the back here, and you can see that they have different numbers of wires. The Leviton light switch has more wires versus the Lutron Caseta light switches has fewer wires. And why is that? Well, this Leviton light switch has a ground wire, a load wire, a neutral wire, and a black hot wire, as well as a traveler wire. So this traveler wire is only needed for three-way use. The other 4 of these wires are required for installation. So what's different about this Leviton light switch is it does require a neutral wire. And we'll put a link to a video for you how to determine what a neutral wire is and if you need one in your home for this. But if you have a house built, I would say after 1985, it's most likely that you will have a neutral wire in your switch box. Now, that's not all true in every case, but most cases, if your house is newer after 1985, you're going to have a neutral wire in your switch box, so no problem installing this here. And what's different is that the Lutron Caseta only has 3 wires. It only has a hot and a load and a ground wire, so fewer wires. What's unique about this is that you can install this smart switch without a neutral wire. So if you don't have a neutral wire, if you have an older home, this Lutron Caseta smart switch is going to be compatible in locations that this Leviton smart switch may not be compatible. So that's going to be an advantage for some of you with older homes, or if you don't have a neutral wire. The other nice thing about this is you can see these are both black. It actually doesn't matter which one you wire to the hot or the load wire. You cannot go backwards with this or forwards. It will work in either configuration. So as long as you have one wire wired up to the hot and the other wired up to the load, this thing will work. So it's very easy. You just take the old 2 wires off the old light switch and install these 2, and you are good to go. Make sure you've got the ground wire connected to something for proper grounding there. So this does not require neutral. This is the Lutron Caseta dimmer switch, and this does require neutral. This is the Leviton smart lighting switch, smart dimmer. Now, why does this one require a neutral wire? Well, it's because of what I talked about earlier with the home hubs. So this has a home hub, this does not. Well, Wi-Fi signals require a lot of power to go back and forth. And because of that, the Wi-Fi chip inside here needs to be powered all the time to communicate with your Wi-Fi router. So that's why you have to have a hot and a neutral, because even when this switch isn't on, it's allowing power to flow through that Wi-Fi chip to communicate with your Wi-Fi router so that this will have full connectivity all the time. Now, how Lutron gets around this is, remember we talked about that home hub that converts the signal from Wi-Fi to Lutron's own proprietary RF system. Well, the Lutron RF system uses significantly less power than a Wi-Fi chip. So they are able to use this Lutron RF chip with their home hub and communicate at a much lower power rate or power consumption rate, which means that they don't have to have a neutral wire. And how they achieve that is basically this thing dims all the way down to 0, but it's still letting a teeny tiny little bit of electric current through that is powering that chip inside of here, but it doesn't need that much power to operate. So when you look at a light switch, it is off or appears off, even though a little bit of power is going through for the RF chip in here to communicate with the hub. But because of the frequency they use in their proprietary network, it doesn't require as much power as this Leviton switch, which means it does not require a neutral switch or a neutral wire on the switch. So that is a difference between the two. So if you do not have a neutral, I would recommend this Lutron Caseta. If you do have a neutral, you could really go with either one of these, whatever your personal preference is. So I have actually both of these in my home because I have to test them for you. But I tend to lean a little bit more to the Leviton light switch just because I don't necessarily want to have a hub or have to worry about that. In terms of features, they both really have a lot of the same features on the app, and we'll go a little bit more into that. But before I do, I also want to talk one more thing about installation and just kind of how these install. You can see here, I've got them. I'll try and compare, maybe that way works well for you. You can see that actually the Leviton light switch is thicker than the Lutron light switch. So if you have shallow switch boxes, for some of you this might be a little bit harder to go in. The Leviton might be harder to get in there because the Lutron is lower profile, as well as you've got more wires off the back of this, so kind of cramming all those wires in there can be a headache sometimes. In terms of width, the Lutron is maybe a little bit wider, or they're very close in width, but in depth you can see the Leviton is a little bit more than the Lutron Caseta. So that's just something to consider when you're installing these. Another thought about this is that these do come with changeable faceplates. Both of them you can change faceplates, but it is easier to get the custom colors ordered ahead of time for the Lutron Caseta. But they do both come with, some of them come with faceplates, just something that you should know. But this one has like an off-white and a tan faceplate with it. One other thing about installation is, we only have the 2 wires here. This has that extra traveler wire. If you want a 3-way installation, which is like what you would have at a stairs, where a switch at the top of the stairs and a switch at the bottom of the stairs controls the same light or the same set of lights. For this, you will install one main switch and then what's called a dimmer repeater. And that dimmer repeater will go on the other side, and it connects through this traveler wire here, and you need to follow the instructions for this. But you basically have 2 smart switches on each end, and they're going to be able to control that. But you have to wire both of these in. So just something to note there. The Lutron Caseta, this actually, you only wire in one of these for a 3-way switch. And what you do for the other side of the Lutron Caseta, if you want to control it from 2 locations, is you use one of these remotes, okay? And this remote, you can take it with you. It comes off of here, and you could actually just use this as a remote anywhere. And you can have more than one remote. You could have 2, 3, 4, 5 remotes for any switch. And they do pair up directly to this. So even when you're not using the app, or let's say your Wi-Fi goes down or whatever, this will always be paired to this. You never have to worry about losing that connection when you set it up right. But what's unique about this is that you would only have to wire in this one switch, and then you can use this remote. And these are designed, there's actually another kit here that makes it a little bit more flush and everything, and on the wall it looks great. It just is hard to show on a video. But you put this in just like a normal wall switch, and it looks like a normal light switch. You would never know that this is a battery-powered remote. So you can make a 3-way switch without ever wiring a 3-way switch. You only wire one side of this, and you're good to go. Or if you don't have an existing 3-way switch and wanted to add one somewhere in your house, you can just buy one of these remotes, one of the kits. We'll put a link to that below, and you can make a three-way switch without any kind of complicated wiring or opening up walls or anything like that. So that is a huge advantage with this Lutron Caseta switch. And the very first time I saw one of these installed, I actually thought that this was a light switch, and somebody told me it wasn't. We took off the cover plate, and it fooled me because they look pretty much identical, and you would never be able to tell when you get the proper mounting kit for this that this is actually a remote control that controls this light switch. And the batteries on this do last for 10 years. So these are used a lot in commercial construction. I've seen them all the time. They've been around for a long time, this Lutron Caseta light switch, and how this works with this three-way switch is really unique. And you can make it a three-way switch, a four-way switch, whatever you wanted, or just add remotes where you want to control something. Let's say you're in the living room watching TV and you want to just have a quick control remote rather than using your phone or voice commands. So that's kind of installation. Let's get into how these work in terms of apps and just kind of my personal thoughts again on these. In terms of the apps, they both really have a lot of the same features. You'll be able to control them from your phone, turn them on and off. The apps are great. These are two really high quality manufacturers and electrical manufacturers that have been around a long time. Leviton and Lutron. You go into any big box store, you're probably going to see one of these two brands, if not both of them. And they both have a good reputation and brand name behind them, so you don't have to worry about that. In both popular, which, you know, a lot of people say, well, why is that important? Well, it is important because you want to have the apps supported on these things for years and decades to come. And when you go with one of these larger manufacturers like Leviton or Lutron, they're going to continue to support these product lines for a long time because they have the volume and the number of devices and everything else that runs on these that people are counting on, that maybe a smaller manufacturer might not have that volume to continue to invest and update and upgrade the app. So both of these apps are very capable. You can set timers from them. You can set auto away or auto off at certain times. You can set schedules. You can create scenes with these so that multiple lights will come on at the same time, or you press one light, it turns on other lights, or when you get home, the lights turn on. And there's all kinds of integrations you can do with both of these so that you can have automated lighting as well as full control from your phone. And like I said, they both work with all the popular voice assistants. Now, I do have more of these in my home than I have the Lutron Caseta, and the reason being is just I like how the functionality of this is. I do like these Lutron Casetas, but I do have a neutral wire in my house, and I just didn't want to have a whole bunch of stuff connected to a hub just in case, I don't know, the hub gets unplugged or something like that. It's just easier having it connected to Wi-Fi and just the setup for that. But once you've started installing these in the Lutron Caseta and you've installed a hub, no big deal. You can use these too. So it really comes down to a personal preference in terms of what you like, and if you have a neutral, you could use either one of these. These are both high quality. Now there's a ton of other smart light switches out there on the market. I don't necessarily recommend all those other light switches, but I do recommend that either one of these you'll be happy with in terms of what you're going to do. The wiring is definitely a little bit easier on the Lutron Caseta because there are fewer wires than the Leviton smart switch. But if you're willing to do a little bit of extra work, it's not that big of a deal. Pay attention to the depth of your switch boxes. This one is a little bit deeper. This one is a little bit shallower. In terms of price, they're pretty comparable. Obviously, you have to make the investment in a hub with Lutron, where you don't need to make the investment in a hub for the Leviton switches, as well as if you are installing these, just something to take note of is that you know, here with a neutral wire, it's you don't have to use that, but you can still use it in a switch box that has a neutral. You just don't connect it. Here you have to have that neutral wire. But what I also think is a little bit, we'll turn this the right side up. Something that you just have to be aware of, depending on the side of your house, is 75 device limitation, and what those device limitations are, where you don't have to worry about that here. And you'd think 75 light switches, well, I don't have that in my house. You'd be surprised. You start to get to that very quickly, and once you have 3 or 4 light switches in a room and bathrooms and everything else, you can easily go over the 75 device limit with the Lutron Caseta, which if you know you're going to do that, maybe you should go with the Leviton so that you don't have to worry about going over that device limit. Overall, I like both of these. Like I said, I have both of them in my home. I haven't had any problems with either of them. These stay connected to the Wi-Fi network. These stay connected to the home hub. the apps work and I'm able to control them with both my voice or from my phone. So I like either one of these. It really comes down to what your existing wiring is and personal preference. So thank you for watching, and we will see you next time. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. Please subscribe. We've got videos down below on how to check if you've got a neutral wire, as well as if you want to support us, click on any of the links below. We hope you enjoyed this, and you really can't go wrong with either of these two light switches or brands for smart home dimmers in your house. And of course, they will function just like a normal on-off light switch as well, so you don't have to worry about the dimming functionality. So thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.